All right, hey guys, welcome back to Old Reader, New Reader. Happy Tuesday. I have friends, and they're here to join me to talk about Paper Girls. So we got two people here. We have Hark and Z. Thank you guys so much. These are my friends from real life, and I suckered them in, like all my friends, to be on my show and talk about books because you guys like books.
I
And
like
so I was
books.
like, I have to bring you on. So before we get into Paper Girls, I don't know if you just want to say hi, introduce yourselves. If you guys have read comics before, if you're not, what kind of like media you're into. Not to put you guys on the spot, but like a quick little, I don't know, get to know you, and then we'll jump into Paper Girls. Hark, if you want to start.
Okay. I'm Hark. Um, what do? I read a bunch. I do a lot of. As soon as you ask somebody what do
I
you do
know.
for
I'm sorry.
fun,
So much pressure to put on
brain
anybody.
stops. Um, I read a lot of comics. But I have a hard time paying attention to the long time like Superman, Batman main things. I'll pay attention to like side stories and
That's fair.
Elseworlds and all that stuff, but Um, trying to think if there's anything really good I've read lately. No, but I'm gonna start reading Die soon, which is a gaming
Yeah.
horror thingy. Because I like gaming and I like horror. Um,
That's all you need.
yeah,
So Z, I know you're big into novels. Have you read much like graphic novels or comic books before?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. I haven't read graphic novels in a really long time. The last that I remember following were Y the Last Man, which is now a show
Great
and getting popular
choice.
again, and
Yeah.
Chew. And those are the
Also,
last
great
ones that I remember.
choice.
Yeah,
So you
I've
just
liked
pulled
them
out
quite a
some
bit.
really good, like, what people would consider like indie things. Not really indie, but like not big too. So
Yeah,
that's
there's a
good.
lot
That
of
gives you
that.
cred in the graphic novel crew for sure. So yeah, Paper Girls. So this is your guys' first time reading it. This is my second time. Paper Girls was makes me want to start by going absolutely. I would be tired. But,
this is fun.
um, so I sent you both the. I'm glad you guys have the because I just bought the digital, but I wanted to send you guys the physical so you could
This
show it
thing is
off.
heavy,
I
just so
mean,
you know. Like,
30
look at this.
issues. It looks nice. I'm gonna have to buy a real copy after this. Chew was great along with Poyo, absolutely. What's up, everyone? Hope you're doing good. Really curious about this. So Paper Girls, we read the whole thing, so that's 30 issues. You can still get the deluxe editions, which are really nice, but they did release like a complete collection, which was about like $40, which is a really good deal for the whole shebang. Some people might be new to this one because they did come out with like a show on Amazon Prime, which is fantastic. 10 out of 10. Only one season canceled. It's still worth taking a watch, especially if you've read the comic book, or if you haven't, maybe you watch a show and then come read the comic book. Either way, we will do spoilers, but I promise that no matter what we spoil about this book, we would have to tell you so many things to spoil what's happening in this because there's a lot of things
Yeah.
happening, a lot of timey-wimey things. So it is chock full of stuff. So quick little like not summary, but kind of play through what this is. Imagine sort of like a Stranger Things-esque storyline. Usually that's kind of how I try to sell it. So we have these four girls in the 90s. They have a paper route. What is happening behind me with my dog? Okay. They run a paper route, but something happens. They end up going to this time traveling adventure, and they're in the middle of they find themselves in the middle of a time war between two like kind of warring factions. The old like the old comers, I forgot what they're called. Anyways,
Old timers.
old timers, thank you. The old timers versus like sort of the younger generation. So one generation wants to keep everything exactly the same. They believe that humanity's first draft is the right draft, and the other one's like, no, we should change some things to make the world better, to make our time better. And so they just these poor like 13-year-old girls, these four 13-year-old girls just kind of find themselves in the situation without planning to be. And so that's kind of the premise. So I guess first question for you guys before we like jump into things. First impressions of this, Because I gave you guys a few options. You guys chose Paper Girls, which I think was a great choice. What were you expecting? Does this meet your expectations? Overall thoughts about it?
I wasn't sure what to expect. I honestly forgot the options you gave us and kind of just remembered the title. So I was thinking more like the paper was going to be symbolic. So it was going to be, like paper tiger. And then when it was literally, no, they're girls who are paper boys. But they're girls, so paper girls. I was like, oh, okay. And then it just kind of, started off a little bit drama, like normal stuff, and then got more and more.
I knew it was going to be sci-fi weird, and guys, I had heard about it, but I hadn't ever looked at it. But I'm so glad I'm not the only one that did not realize it was paper girls on a paper route with newspaper, because I did not get that until a shocking amount of pages in. I was like, oh, obviously.
I'm really glad that neither of you have read this before or heard about it, because this is one of those, it's like, I'd say that Paper Girls is the one that's very well known and like the comic book reader community. It's like it's pretty high up there. Same with like Saga and things. There are certain books you recommend to people. So for this to be new to you guys is really exciting for me personally, to be like, hey, here's one of these. It's like a no-brainer recommendation for people. Partly because Brian K. Vaughan, fantastic writer. Cliff Chiang, probably saying his name wrong, fantastic artist. I think his art definitely suits this kind of story. And then the color work is perfect. It's a perfect kind of massive like neon and like, which fits like the time itself, but also just time travel. And it makes it really, I don't know. It reminds me a lot of like 80s sci-fi kind of movies. It gives me that same kind of feel. So it fits so well. Repping for Gen X, Paper Girl's a great story. Absolutely. And yeah, we do talk about the Apple product placement. Because that was also good.
Yeah, I think that was when that little Apple thing showed up. I was like, whoa, wait, what?
So one thing I'd love to talk to you guys about that I kept coming up to me as reading is like the overall world building of this that I thought was really cool. Because we're going through a lot of different eras of time. And one of the things we see from like the people in the far future is their language use, which is confusing at first, but then once you catch on is really interesting. And for someone who comes from a language learning background, I thought it was really cool to see how things developed in our Earth future that I wasn't expecting. Apple was one of them. The way that like Apple products developed to be used, but also just the way that they talked where in their mind, like everything was just shortened more. Because it would make sense that like hundreds of years from now, our language continues to shorten and develop. So what do you think about that? Was it super confusing for you? Because it was for me at first, but then it was like, oh, this makes sense. This is neat. I've never seen it done like that before.
Yeah, I think with the language, I don't know, I'm slightly older than you guys. So I had that really crappy text speak where people had to hit 9 so many times. And leet speak and all that.
Oh, thank God it wasn't leet speak, because that would have been a nightmare to read through.
Like when they were actually using English lettering, I followed it. I stared a long time at the other language in the book.
Yeah, Old English. Sorry, the other one. Yeah.
Oh no, the one where it's just like weird symbols. I was like, this has got to be like, put a mirror up to it or something so I could figure out what it's saying.
And I'm sure it's probably some like letter to letter like translation, like what Elvish is or something. But I didn't take the time. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows.
Yeah, I agree. When it first came up, I was ready to hate it because I think a lot of folks make languages poorly in their fiction. But I was very pleased that it was really cool. It was a really good evolution of English.
What I love the back and forth. So I guess we can go and talk about like, well, maybe we should talk about the girls first before we talk about the grandfather. Okay, the girls, the 4 girls, whose names I have right here in the Wikipedia because otherwise I would forget, because I did read this right before. No one is surprised in the chat. We have Erin, who is Chinese American. They don't talk about that a lot in the comic book. They do a lot more in the show to focus on like what that's like for her, because she talks about like her family giving out full candy bars because they want the neighborhood to like her, and part of that's because of her heritage. We've got Mac, who's from like a really poor background. She smokes. She's like someone that I would have thought was really cool at that age, who is cool because she's dealing with so much trauma, has no one watching over her. We have KJ, who is she's Jewish. She plays field hockey. She's dealing with finding out that she's gay from the future. That's a fun way to find out you're gay. And then we have Tiffany, who's like this very much like, she plays a lot of video games, but she's kind of a genius. Like she's really smart. The way she thinks is really interesting. And she has a lot of hopes for her future to be an astronaut. So that's our 4 girls who would join together on Hell Night. Like, hey, this is a really shitty night. After Halloween, everyone's acting up. Let's stick together. What do you think about the girls? Because I love them, but I love little ragtag groups where everybody's different. But this group especially was so interesting to watch because they're not a cookie cutter version of girls that you would see, right, or read about, or like people tend to write about. Because you never know, it's not written by a woman. Not that it has to be for it to be good, but there can be a sort of like expectation of how the characters are written. And these are very much middle schoolers. They say what they want to say because there's no parents around. And I feel like they're played very true to what girls like that would go through in that situation. So I'd love to hear more about what you guys think.
Go ahead. I don't have much experience being a
being a 12-year-old girl. Yeah, no, it was like this. Yeah, exactly like this. In fact, we've seen a lot. No, I absolutely loved them. They were all so interesting and so just cool in their own way, just doing their own thing. Like whatever they had, it was like extra cool for them. But I didn't think I was going to like KJ very much on the page. I kept, in the beginning, I was like, she seems kind of in the background. And then as it progressed, I was like, oh, she's my favorite. She's really going through a lot and doing cool things. Wonderful.
Do you have a favorite KJ moment? That's a big ask.
Probably. Give me a second. I'll see if I can find it.
I already forgot which one was KJ.
KJ's the one with the ponytail.
Oh, okay, yeah. And
she killed a lot of people.
The windbreaker.
yeah.
Girl, yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Probably the hockey stick, like just sending it back and the messaging and how that kind of like layered, jumping ahead, but how that layered made her character stand out to me. That was the first moment I was like, oh, we have a major player here.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy each pathway of each character a lot. For Erin and Tiffany, it's really great because you'd see their future selves and how they interact. Like, I love when we see the first older Erin, who's like 40, and there's this really sweet moment that I really appreciate with them, where Erin's like, hey, I'm really sorry. You came to the future. And she's like, and you didn't expect to see, and this is her words, not mine, just like some fat, single woman who's still living in her old house, who's not really going anywhere. And, younger Erin's like, no, I'm really glad. Honestly, like, it's so great that you're single. No kids, you can still do so much. And they have this really sweet one where they hug. And I thought that was so sweet, because how often would you wish you'd have that moment with a younger you, and have a younger you that's proud of where you are? I think was very sweet, because it could have gone very differently. And it does, when you have like Tiff and Tiffany, whose future self, who is rad as hell, but does not fit in what Tiffany was thought. She's like, oh, okay, we're on it. We're going to be astronauts. We're the top of our field. That's where she's going. And then she finds herself who's married to a super goth guy and who's all raved out. And not at all.
I'm not gonna lie, for a second, totally thought her husband was a wife. And I was like, oh, they're gay too. Cool. Like, good for them. But then I was like, oh no, that's just like a cool dude.
Yeah.
I loved him. I loved them. Double O Tiff is best Tiff.
Double
She's
O
a
Tiff is
delight.
great. I wish I could be that cool. The dream of then and now is the same. If I could just be Tiffany when she's like in her 20s, that'd be great. That's the ideal. And then talking about KJ, she's such a great character to follow because she has like a lot of hangups of her own. A lot of it's from like her Jewish heritage and how she's treated. But when one moment that's really cool to talk about this book did, when she touched this crystal, she saw her future and saw that she's kissing Mac, which is a big contention. And there's already been some like anti-gay things from Mac, especially because she uses the F slur at the beginning, which is important because later on the same exact thing happens and she doesn't. She calls him like fart mouth instead, which is a nice change. But to see her kind of like wrestle with that throughout, and like seriously, but also casually, which I appreciate as somebody who says what they're thinking all the time, awkwardly, I can relate to her because you have that moment where she's like, she's seen it. She doesn't want to say anything. She's like, oh, this is bullshit. This doesn't tell the future. And later on, she's like, oh, I think I might be gay in the future, actually. Or maybe I'm already gay now. It's like, that's how I would have said it to people around me. Because like a panic. Like, I don't know how to bring this up.
Yeah. Or it was like they were replaced by a gay pod person.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, half right or something like that.
Well, in that age too, and plus she's being surrounded by all these people in the future that are like, no, that's no big deal.
Right.
Like everyone has boyfriends or wives or whatever in the future, and like, no, oh, I forget that your generation, your Earth is like behind. We're all super chill about that now. We like us,
Yeah.
so you'll get there. That's not your fault. Just got a good comment. Best part about the show is that all the girls are a lot more fleshed out while remaining true to the spirit of the characters in the comics. Absolutely agree. I can't wait for you guys to watch it so you can tell me about it. Selfishly, that's what I want.
I'm looking for my favorite KJ moment. I haven't found it yet, but I will say I love how she handles it. She's not afraid to just like get out there and fight something because it's got to be done, and stand up for everyone else in the group. And I love that.
Yeah, because you don't expect that from her. I feel like her like personality doesn't match that, but then so often she's like, well, shit, I have to be the one to murder this guy. You're like, whoa.
She also threatens someone with her boot later, and a delightful moment. And then at the end, just wants to keep the shoes, and I'm like, yeah, you should get to keep those. She's been through a lot.
Very cool. Very cool of them to basically do like a fantasy element. Give us those like what 9 league boots or shoes, whatever they're called in like fantasy lore, but just like big old jump boots, which I love. Oh, okay. There's a lot of these talking about this book. The Y2K stuff killed me dead because at one point they go to 1999, New Year's 1999, and everyone's freaking out like, oh shit, it did happen exactly how they thought. There are 2 mech suits fighting that nobody can see. All the lights are out. And all the newspapers are like, oh shit, it really happened. Especially the Applebee's, which is also great. I appreciate all the dorky placements of things, especially the Applebee's. And I just, as somebody who lived through that, which I would hope everybody here and in the chat did. Maybe they did it. I don't know how older young people are. Hilarious. What a perfect time travel point to go to be like, obviously things are fine past this. But let's get some really goofy Y2K moments.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, it's an Applebee's. Like, we love a theme. We're just staying with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Hey. And the mechs were so cool. I wish there were more mechs, but it makes sense that there's not more mechs. Like, it would disrupt the story. But being an anime fan, the mechs were so cool.
I'd always accept more.
There's like the Evangelion looking guy.
Yeah.
And the other one kind of looked like Big Hero 6 Baymax.
Yeah.
But big. And
More
then there was
mechs.
the like Red Cross one.
Yeah.
I
feel like it was something on the nose, like a stomper or something.
Yeah. And then he stomped on the thing.
Yeah.
The one thing I
Okay.
liked is that
Okay.
the grandfather, I forgot his name, but the old dude,
Yapo. You can say grandfather though. Sorry.
he's just like wearing all these old '90s rap shirts. He has like Public Enemy, and then I just noticed he has a Wu-Tang shirt on.
He's so chill, which I like because he's like the head of this whole thing. But this guy is pretty relaxed. It's like as a person, like looking. He's wearing like flip flops,
Yeah,
and I love that he talks in old English always, and then requires people to like. I think told one person to Googlate it, so
yeah.
they would switch to like the old English to talk with him.
Hmm.
Oh man! So in the show, I need to tell you guys because it's really funny, but he is played by Jason Mantzoukas, who's like a big comedian. I will show you a picture and you'll know exactly who he is. But it is the perfect casting ever. 1 second, I can post on here because that's how it works on StreamYard. So the person playing grandfather is this person. And
Oh yeah,
fantastic comedian. He's in The League, which is what I know him from, but he's in a ton of stuff.
he's in The
So
Good Place.
yeah.
It's wonderful.
So he's a very it's that kind of like vibe of character. Let's talk about his story, because I think as fellow sci-fi fantasy lovers, I feel like you guys probably appreciate as much as I did about him and his mother and when they see her in the prehistoric times to the future. What are your thoughts on that? Because I love this whole bit because they meet his mom in the past. They inevitably accidentally end up saving him, the same person who's hunting them.
Mm-hmm.
They save the baby that is going to become the grandfather in the future. Love that kind of line. So how'd you guys feel about that part?
I love that weird like time crossover, time travel stuff, where it's like you're the one who caused what happened.
Yeah.
Because him going back to 2000 caused him to go from being kind of chill to like being super aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Because of I don't know who the lady was, but he was real upset about it when it was young him.
Yeah, the prioress, I think. It was basically one of his kind of like follower, almost like a priestess character, I guess, given what she looked like.
Yeah, she was like a higher up in his followers,
Yeah.
but him going back causing that, but they went back and caused him to want to do that. So that stuff is amazing to me.
We love a closed forced time loop. We love and hate it. Let's see. So I'd love to know what are some like favorite moments you guys had? If there's anything that really spoke out to you. Or if you can talk about maybe something you weren't as happy about. Because I'm not expecting you guys to come on here and rave and be like, Maddie, you did it. You suggest us a 10 out of 10. Thank you so much. You guys can be honest as well and say, hey, these are some things I didn't like. These things I did like. Because we are an honest. This is not sponsored by Image Comics. You can just speak your mind.
Well, I don't want to lie. This was a 10 out of 10 for me. So I was pretty happy with most of it. Well done.
Yeah, even the things that like aggravated me
Mm-hmm.
were aggravations because the character was interesting.
Yeah.
Like what is it? It's Mac who finds out she's gonna die, and because she knows when she's gonna die, she thinks she won't die at any other time.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of thing frustrates me, but it fits the character so well.
It's honestly the best. Like, I'm not glad this happened to her, obviously, but I feel like it makes the most sense to happen to a character like that. And I think it's more painful, right? Because already the other three girls, they come from pretty privileged backgrounds. They all have their own thing that's against them, obviously. But like, Mac does not have a good home life at all. Her parents are alcoholics. Like, things are not good for her. I mean, she's a 13-year-old that smokes a ton. So probably not in a healthy situation. Not that that can't happen to anybody. Before someone in the chat's like, this happened to me and you don't... It was a blanket statement. But
I'm
it's
sorry
so
you got time
devastating.
travel disease, person in chat.
Oh. Well, it's so sad, right? Because like she finds out in the future she died from leukemia. And she's like, okay, this really sucks. But everyone's like, well, we're going to fix it. Especially KJ. She's like, we can, in the future, they cured leukemia. But it's like, surprise. Yeah, we can cure leukemia, but you don't have leukemia. You have time traveler's disease. There's literally nothing we can do. But it also gives us such a sweet moment with the creator of time travel that I love. Is so poignant where something happens, everyone's sent to different corners of time. And she ends up on this, like, I guess, Earth's last day.
Yeah.
With a creator of time travel who also has time traveler's disease. And she's like, I came here to see the end of it. What better way to die than to see the end of the world and spend the time with that? And it's this really sweet moment where she's like, it's not as scary as you think. Like, it's more exciting. Like, it's like there's something new's going to happen. And I thought that was so sweet because you have these two really hardened women, right? These two hardened characters. They're pretty tough on the exterior. For them to have this sweet moment and for Mac to kind of hold her in her last moments. It just got me.
And the whole, like, it's the journey, not the destination that they said in a much cooler, sweeter way.
Yeah.
That I thought was really, really good. And it's like major spoilers.
We can do spoilers. It's okay.
Well, but it's also spoilers for the Dark Tower series because it's what it reminded me of.
Okay.
Which just got announced is going to be a TV show. Super exciting. But the Dark Tower series is a loop as well.
Yeah.
But the end is slightly different than the beginning. So it kind of, for the more imaginative people, it kind of gives you a little bit of hope that things might be better.
Yeah.
Because Tiffany, 00 Tiffany mentions they kind of just hung out for like a week and then fell apart. Whereas this kind of implied they were going to stick together longer.
Right, because they do it different this time. They're going to hang out a little bit longer, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
All loops need that like hope at the end that it's different this time. That's what makes them so interesting. And I love that we go back to the beginning scene. I love the mirror.
So you guys like, because I definitely want to hear about your thoughts about the ending too, because that can be polarizing because it's not like everything is exactly what you'd want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a happy ending, but that was kind of the point of the story. Like, it isn't a happy ending, and life isn't always about a happy ending, but it's making the best of what ending you get.
Are you all a little crushed that they don't remember everything that happened?
Oh my God, yes. I was so upset because I was like, they're calling each other their girlfriends, and it's adorable, and I love them. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's always the hardest part for me with books like this, because you went through this big adventure and you have to, I think the biggest mourning is going back to regular life and not knowing, which happens in so many time travel and fantasy things because people always lose their memories. It's like Donna and Doctor Who, you know, like it's always like
the same thing.
But you went through this amazing thing and it doesn't exist to you anymore. But at least it doesn't exist to any of them. It'd be worse if one of them remembered.
Yeah. I could see that because then they couldn't share it.
Yeah.
What they knew.
Oh, that would be much worse.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really poignant. I think it matched the story. It's so beautifully closed. There's so many books and comic books that never get they never get that closure.
Mhm.
That's the unfortunate thing about this genre, is that because there's like an issue by issue format, some things don't continue. So it's
Mhm.
not like authors that put out like singular books at a time. It's quite often that things will get canceled and we never get any resolution. It's less often in books like this, but like for a big 2 fan, I guess you guys can tell I love Wonder Woman. There are tons of books that never get continued. I'll never have closure on, and they will never allow me to have that. And so I'm thankful books like this are like, no, we have an end, you guys. It's going to end, and there it is. And so at least there's that, but it can be a little. There's some grief in that. I think that type of ending still too, because that's it. And it's not like the perfect scenario, but there isn't a perfect scenario, I guess, in time travel.
Mhm.
But, okay. Other things. What do we not talk about? We got to talk about. I know we kind of talked about the time loop and like the grandfather, but I want to talk about Wari because I think she's like an underrated character in the book, and that's
Yeah.
the grandfather's mother that they meet, because she's a badass when they meet her, and she continues to be a badass when she is an old lady.
Mhm.
And I'm very appreciative of her, and also the style in which she is, like her whole, like her face painting, the way she dresses and everything.
Yeah, I'm pulling up. I'm going to like the fight scene with her, and that was just so well done. Like the final one where they're uh, all together in
Yeah,
the with the 3 fathers or whatever they are.
yeah,
I love that. Even after that terrible scene that they went through, it showed that they hung out together and they learned a little bit of each other's language too, which is reasonable, but it was nice to see that connection be formed.
yeah. Try to sneeze. Sorry, guys. We're in Kentucky, so this is just life. Whew. Okay.
Yeah, and closer to the end of her story, I think it was a super clever move to start talking about memory,
Mm-hmm.
because she is not quite, hers is not quite what it was. And so that, I mean, started the conversation many issues before the end of, is it worth it if you can't remember it?
Oh, that's such a good point. That I wouldn't even really think about that. And that also ties. I guess that really ties in with like Aaron's grandmother and mom too, because there also deals with dementia and that also. I didn't even think about that. Because yeah, later in life, even though Hari's, I guess, Wari's been alive for a while, it seems like, and she kind of goes in and out of remembering what is real and what's not, but her spirit's still there.
Yeah, and I think she also kind of used that in some of the things where it was like the conversation was getting a little too uncomfortable for her. She was like, "Oh yeah, I have dementia now." Ha ha. Like if I
Which
felt
I
like
would
she was
too.
messing with the people as well as actually suffering from it.
Were you guys as excited as I was when she showed up right at the end?
Yes. And that was another little like clue for me to be more hopeful about the end. Cuz isn't it like time travel's not supposed to happen period or something like that?
Yeah,
And then it just did.
it's very cute.
And it's also the same station wagon that Aaron tried to call the cops on in the first. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's still her. She's still out there.
She's just, which is such a good, like, oh, I love that kind of old woman stereotype where they're just out running crazy in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But they're wise. Like, I love that trope. I don't care how many times it's used.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to just hanging out with the chat, I want to make sure I'm leaving room open for anything you guys would want to talk about. Because I tend to talk a lot to fill space to keep conversation going. But I can miss things that guests want to talk about. So I make sure to leave that open. If there's other things you'd like to, high points you like, things, the book that kind of hits you, anything like that.
Favorite thing in the whole the whole read was the issue where they are all flung into 4 different times, and it's just that split. I loved it. You're reading
Let
all
me
4 of
highlight
them,
you.
every single page. Oh God. Okay, there we go. Like every single page, and each one is a different character in their different time, and it's just really cool to see them all at once, kind of like you're watching them simultaneously. But also, each of those stories was really wonderful to have each of the characters shine and do what they do kind of best, and that was great.
Yeah, such a cool layout. It was perfect for like the time kind of thing because there are different times, but technically all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of pressure to put on people.
Yeah, you
It's
keep
okay if
putting
you don't.
pressure on us. I just the art is just so amazing in this, and I love the how they with you mentioned the colors earlier. How it was like they were putting different camera filters on.
Yeah.
So where you know, like some movies always have that terrible blue filter.
Twilight.
Yeah, and it was like the different time periods had that the different camera filters on them, and it was cool because at the end it was like there was no filter.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the colors really make this book in a big way. And a lot of times people don't mention like the colorist a lot in books, even though they're as much a part of the storytelling as like your main illustrator and writer. Because even with just the art and the story, without the colors, it wouldn't really define the mood throughout here. TV shows that have that terrible blue filter too, Titans. Jaden, we don't talk about Titans on this show. I can't handle that.
Oh, really? I got slightly interested after reading a prediction, maybe.
See, you don't know this. I'm a huge Titans fan as far as comic books. I'm a huge Titans fan. Not Teen Titans. Titans. So that show poo-pooed over everything I love. Especially my girl, Donna Troy. I'm the #1 Donna Troy fan. I got some figures back here of her. There's some artwork above here.
I didn't notice.
And they haven't put my boy Roy Harper in it. They just mention him. Rude. Come on.
There's a possible reference in a throwaway line to Animal Man, and that makes me excited because Animal Man is the closest thing to a continuing storyline that I'll pay attention to.
Oh man, listen! If you guys ever want to eat Z, you've got to read Animal Man. If you like horror, Animal Man's so cool. You'd love it. You'd love it. You don't need to know anything about DC. It doesn't matter. It's just a lot of horror, and you're like, whoa.
Sounds perfect.
Even the 90s one was weird and cool and weird.
So good. Never ask a woman her age, Amanda's salary, or how she feels about Titans. That's true. Question in the chat. I'm curious, as someone that Sally didn't like the first volume, issues 1 through 6. Did you guys feel like it was a little bit too fast paced in the beginning?
How far is the 6th? They didn't have you only had that big splash page to know it was the next.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of curious where the story was.
Probably up until they ran into adult Aaron. I would think it'd be the first 6. It's me guessing.
It might be when they run into Mac's stepmom. Oh yeah, that's where the first thing is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. It was really fast paced in the beginning, in a way that I'm not used to, but in a way that I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. We're just gonna run. All right. So I think there was an adjustment, but once you got there, it was fine. The rest of it felt very even.
And there was a lot of callbacks because it was kind of mirroring my the character's confusion about what's going on with my confusion while I'm reading it, which is extremely frustrating because I want to know why that's happening. But then they have the callbacks later where they even have the one person who's the weird bald knight person.
Yeah.
They flash back to that from the weird bald knight person's point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a read where you have to trust that you will be given the answer. You will just be given it many issues later. So just keep going.
Or you were
like a Gideon the
you didn't
Ninth book.
realize.
I was just thinking about Harrow and whether Harrow counts as a time travel story or whether the line between time travel and alternate universes is, but I won't get into Harrow here.
Listen, it's complicated.
I
As many
still have to read it.
many books of any media are, really. So I guess we can get to time with the chat. Z, you are giving it 10 out of 10. Hark, what would you rate this out of 10? Sorry, I should have warned you. That's a required part of the show.
Oh yeah.
We
now
give
I
a
have to do
rating.
math. Damn it.
I will accept points as well. If it's like a 9 point something, that is also allowed. There are no rules except for out of 10.
I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It was really good. But the point about the beginning of the story being really confusing, or not confusing, but like it was like it didn't know where it was going at first. That took me a really long time to get into it as well, and it kind of my interest snowballed from there because it was like, oh yeah, this is good. I have to read this comic because Maddie asked us to, and then it was, oh wait, what the fuck? Wait, what? Okay. And then it like the last hour I read the 2/3 of the book.
That's how I read. Yeah, I'm a 10 out of 10 with it. I will say it's probably best that the TV show didn't continue because I feel like if it had, my rating of this book would drop only because I feel like the TV show has the privilege to be able to improve it and expand upon things that the book can't just have the time to do. And so I'm one of those people that has a hard time differentiating because I'm like, oh, it could be this. So there's a cartoon on Amazon Prime, Invincible, and I read the comic book for that. To me, the TV show just made it better. And so,
have to read the comic.
Oh, it's good, but it's not. It's also it is a product of its time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things that like I'll read and I'll be like, oh wow, you really wanted to write that in there. You really did that.
It's okay. Kirkman, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So
yeah.
We're from the same town, he and I. We had a Walking Dead day. It's very weird. But yeah, but luckily, I'm glad that he, as other people do when they revisit those things, can fix up and make it a little better, a little less super offensive. Not the PC police. There's just things that can be fixed, like the Boys comic, which is atrocious. But the show recognizes that and does better while paying homage to what it is. Maddie always forces people to do her bidding. I mean, true. What are you gonna do?
Read the comic. That's what I was supposed to do.
I try my best. It's not always things that are just self-serving, because if it was, it would be like, read this Roy Harper book or whatever, which for a new comic book reader I would not do to you guys, to be like, read about my husband or my wife. But if you guys would come back on again, I will choose other books.
I mean, if
but
you want to make us read Animal Man, that'd be cool.
I've been tempted by the omnibus next year, so maybe I will. Oh god, it was so good.
Oh man,
Swamp Thing's also good, but as a monster lover, also.
The old Animal Man omnibus or the New 52.
New 52, I really
the
like.
rot and stuff.
That's what I like.
Never got to finish the story because of drama with my local comic book shop.
Oh. I'm a Jeff Lemire diehard, so he wrote that book and I love him. But I love him. I love Swamp Thing. But again, well, once they showed Swamp Thing getting dirty with like mind sex, I was like, yes, love him. Love that. Love that for him.
Yeah.
I'm not hiding that part of me. Being an It's fine.
Well, good for him. At least he got something.
Anyway, so we have time to chill. This is just chat time. So, chat, if you have any questions for our people, I will ask them questions. This is just us talking about our interest time, not anything like, where were you this day?
I don't know where I was in 1988. I was 3. I'm sorry.
You were 3 in 1988?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we know how old you are.
I told you I was older than you.
What other media are you guys into? Like, if you recommendations, so like you've read Paper Girls. If you were going to recommend a different media, like a TV show or a book, to someone who read Paper Girls who doesn't read as much non-comic books, what would you recommend? I know it's a big ask.
Well, so I do a lot of tabletop role-playing games, and this was very much, there's literally a game called Kids on Bikes, and it's a similar thing. Also, Tales from the Loop, which I have not seen the TV show, started as an RPG. Well, started as paintings that inspired an RPG that inspired a TV show.
Yeah.
And the RPG is very much this similar kind of weird sci-fi, fantasy, horror combo thing. And it invokes a lot of nostalgia as well.
Good choice. Z, I saw you unmuted for a second.
No, as you've alluded to, horror is my thing. So I just chuckled because whatever I have is going to probably be a horror wreck. But my best friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This feels a little bit like that.
Yes.
Also, the strong 80s vibes. And I haven't seen it yet, so don't spoil. Did they make a movie out of it?
They did.
They did?
Yeah.
I'm wary. Have you seen it?
I thought it was okay.
Books
but
better.
I love Grady Hendrix, so the bar was high. But I will gladly accept any recommendations you have, because I read all of Grady Hendrix. Now I need more books. I need more things to read.
You should go through my to read pile. It's basically everything Z has suggested for me since 2016.
That's what I want. See,
I'm so sorry. You're never getting out of that pile. It just keeps.
There's so many.
This.
I want recommendations too, Z.
I've given you
that.
Gideon.
We'll trade.
I've given you Dragula. I've given you all I can.
No, books now. I'll listen. We'll just do a little exchange, okay? I'll lend you comic books you'll like, for sure. And you lend me regular books.
Perfect.
Thin Fancy Necromancy was pretty nostalgic filled. It was a lot less serious, though.
That's fine. Maddie has interesting allies. I agree. The comics usually bear in my mind, but the creators can control the show. The changes that they make can be good, because I do like the Umbrella Academy show with the changes it's made. Speaking of timey-wimey, Umbrella Academy, great show. I prefer it to the comic book. That's not just because I'm a Gerard Way fan girl, or at least was. You know, I had the scene here. Regular books, that's sacrilege. I like both. I've been reading regular books. I'm reading romance books right now. Asher Parker doesn't fail. The sequel to Delilah Green. It's fine. It's like they're usually gay, is what it is if I'm reading a regular book.
I mean,
I'm reading Five Nights at Freddy's. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anyone.
I watch YouTube channel videos about the Five Nights at Freddy's books.
Well, I read them. So who's the worst person now? Me.
Maybe.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
It sounds like an interesting storyline, but I don't want to get into jump scares, because that's...
It's probably best if you don't. Don't be like me. I'm an adult.
It's a cheap shot at
Do
horror.
I have the advent calendar in my living room? I don't know. Okay? Don't worry about it. Jaden asked favorite DC books. I mean, we already had Hark mentioned Animal Man. Have you read anything DC, Z, before? Any DC?
I'm so bad at this that I need to Google DC to double check, and then I'll
Wonder Woman, Superman, all those people. I'll show you some DC stuff sometime.
read some Wonder Woman.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Just my girl, my girl right there, my lady, my love. I can always send you the good stuff. I know what you like. No, I'm an adult, Jaden. I'm an adult. Balloon Boy's not my favorite. I'm an adult who does other things with my time. I'm just here for Ashton Park. It doesn't fail. I know. Chris, I need you to come visit so you can meet Z and Hart because you would love them and they would love you. Okay? Thank you.
That's a big thing. Like, that's a lot of pressure. That's more pressure than reading a book.
Well, the Comic Slayer's my platonic soulmate.
Okay.
She and I do a Sunday show together. And I just like for my friends to meet my other friends. That's all I ever want. Oh. You guys, so I read horror manga throughout the year as well, and horror books. So I should have you guys on to do that.
In January, a new Junji Ito.
I've got
show.
it on pre-order. You guys want to come on and talk about it?
Sure.
Yes.
I buy all of them as they come out because Junji Ito, as many people know in the chat, is my comfort read. It's like my warm mug. I there's something about it. It's just, to me, it's cozy. It's comfortable. Like, I love him. Yeah, that's perfect. James, thank you. That's what we'll do. Come back on spooky reads. Like Harrow County or Gideon Falls. I got so many.
Most of my comics are horror comics. I just can't remember any of them right now.
That's fine.
Like I aggravate the comic book shop guy because I'm like, hey, do you have anything new that's horror? And they're like, we have The Walking Dead.
No, just talk to me. Just talk to me.
Horror.
I just picked up Harrow County. Was that that was probably by you. Yeah, you probably told me.
Harrow County's so good. And the book feels nice. That's also important to me. I like to rub the books on my face. They have a good face
This
feel.
book felt nice as a
good
aside.
Good.
It has a nice combo of matte and shiny.
Oh, here's a good question. How do you guys give the book a second chance? Do you reread the volume where you fell off, or do you keep going on to the next one to see if it'll get better for you? I think this works for comics and regular books, I think. Do you ever give books a second chance, or when you read it and you're like, I can't?
Depends on how bad it is and who told me to read it.
Yes, exactly that.
And
That's
like,
fair.
If I trust them, I'll keep going. And if I picked it up on my own, I will put it down and walk away.
I am continuously reading and rereading Harrow the Night through audiobook. I'll have to purchase a physical copy to make it happen.
I keep
But
trying
only because
to get
I need
through
someone to
Gideon,
give me
I'm distracted so easily.
Yeah. I need someone to give me pictures of who is who so I don't forget. I need like a vision board.
I will send you one. I will send you one.
You.
I will send you the photos. But the paperback version of Harrow has also another short story in it and a glossary that is game changing.
Wow. I've got a 2-week long Christmas break thing coming up, so I think that's what I'll do.
And then come to my door and scream about it.
Because you live so close to me. Listen, I got a library and a heated table, Z. We could hang out and read books.
And I have a Gideon costume right next to me. So whenever you're ready.
Do you want me to fall in love with you? It's so weird that you would say that. Are you just gonna pull it out?
I can't reach it with my headphones on.
Z, we have a question from Comics Library. Have you read any Eric LaRocca?
I did read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. I thought it was really cool, but the real horror of that was that it was what we were all doing in chat rooms in the early 2000s, and we should not have been unsupervised. But that book was really cool. It's a really short read. Yeah, it played with a lot of formats. I liked it.
I'll have to check that out because I did a lot of things in Charms I shouldn't have done. I swindled a lot of people on Guy Online for a guy of money.
Then you're gonna love this book.
Okay.
I
Also, there's an apple component, so we're still in theme. It's an apple peeler,
Good
but
deal.
it's in component. It's theme.
I just had a conversation on Reddit about how in the early 2000s we used to go on cam girl websites and tell them to put shoes on their heads.
What?
Yeah, it wasn't like a dirty thing at all. Like we were actively trying to stop them from doing dirty things. It was just like put shoe on head. And
I just remember existing on like big forums on like back in the day. That was a lot of Silent Hill forums
nice.
is what I was on a lot.
I
And then
want more
Guy
Silent Hill
Online.
books. We should have Silent Hill books.
We have the comic books. There's
There's
something.
comic. I didn't
Yeah,
know there was
there's-
comics.
Yeah. You guys should come over when Silent Hill 2 remake comes out. It'll be
Yes.
great. I can make themed foods, and then we can talk about the lore and then what everything means and how that door, that's Angela's father. This room we're finding is a womb. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's
game.
a fetus.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much everything in Silent
this
Hill
main
is a
character's
fetus.
subconscious. Yeah. It's fine. To prove you're a real person too. Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones is another I loved.
Stephen
I
Graham
don't have any
Jones
shoes
is
nearby.
perfection. Everything he writes is amazing.
So Kristen, you've just been keeping these recommendations from me too. I thought we were meant to be forever. I can't believe you.
Mapping the Interior is the one I would suggest. It's a novella to start with, just to get into Stephen Graham Jones' world. It does my favorite thing about horror, which is makes the audience complicit in the horror. So he never writes, there's like a little phrase that keeps being repeated and he doesn't say the word dead. So you have to fill it in your head and it just pulls you right in. It's so good. It's such a little trick and it's just so good.
I'm going to add that to my list.
I don't appreciate Psycho Cleveland calling me a robot.
I don't have any shoes nearby, so the robot would say.
I was also a nice little Catholic boy in the early 2000s.
Were we all? Just follow me on Goodreads, Maddie. I do. I have Paper Girls on my list of books to read. Do you think this book would make a good suggestion for a book club? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of themes you can really dig in here if you have the time. And it's a nice lengthy read. It depends on what your book club's into. Like, I can recommend this to like friends here, but if it was like a regular book club with regular people, maybe not. But people like Stranger Things, like regular people like Stranger Things now, so maybe they would like Paper Girls. I say regular people, I'm picturing like my sisters, I guess. Like they'll read a lot about murder, but I don't know if they'll read Paper Girls, you know what I mean? But that's my family. I don't know what like normal people read. Oh, then yeah, absolutely. 100%. All right, so we're reaching the end of the time. I'll be back next week with a book. Did I forget to choose one next week? Not technically. It has been hard to narrow it down. I believe I know what I'm reading the last Tuesday. I think Gideon Falls, I think. Kristen, I'm not sure. If not, Kristen, I'll read that in January. I'll figure out what next week is at some point. I'll be better next month. Anyways, thank you so much, Hark and Z, for being here. I really appreciate you both.
Thanks for having us.
This was lovely. It'd be great if you came on again.
Yeah. I like books and comics.
And I like you guys.
Oh, I like you too.
We like you.
Thanks.
Z's okay.
Whoa. How dare
Sorry.
Okay.
I've only known Hark for like 8 years. I don't know.
You guys met over books.
You did.
So.
To the point where Z thought I worked with them at
I trained you. I trained you. Whether you worked or not is not irrelevant.
So thank you guys. Everybody at home, I hope you have a good night. James, yes. Near Mint Collective will have a live show this Thursday. Andrew's not going to be there. I will be there. Tina will be there. I don't know who else. We'll be talking about things we've watched. I don't know, James. You know how those shows are. I don't know what's gonna happen. We'll just chat and say hi. That'll be there on that channel on Thursday at 9. Yep. Everyone, hope you have a good night. I will see y'all next week and stay healthy. Bye.
Wash your hands.